It was the fastest growing company in human history, faster than Amazon, faster than Google. In 2010, Groupon was an absolute juggernaut. They were so powerful, so unstoppable, they rejected a billion-dollar buyout offer and decided to conquer the world alone. Instead, Groupon lost 99% of its value. Today, it's a shambling corporate zombie, bleeding cash and serving as a punchline for the tech industry. How does an empire that massive crash so violently? The truth is, Groupon wasn't actually a tech company. It was a predatory trap, a firm based in exploiting human psychology and bankrupting the businesses they claimed to support. This is the brutal autopsy of Groupon, the ultimate corporate death spiral. Chapter 1: The FOMO Engine. Born out of founder Andrew Mason's frustration with trying to get out of a cell phone contract, Groupon had a very simple concept behind it. What if a large group of people concentrated behind a single goal? What started as a less focused web platform called The Point soon turned into Groupon, a company that would unite a large number of people to buy the same product in order to receive a large discount. The idea was that this would benefit everyone. The buyers get the discount, and the business gets a large amount of new traffic. Groupon, meanwhile, gets more subscribers. It started off simple, and it took off like wildfire. It all began with a simple 2-for-1 deal on pizzas at Motel Bar, a restaurant in the same building Groupon was based in. The public turned out and the collective buying strategy worked. Within 16 months, Groupon was valued at over $1 billion. People would quickly snap up the deals as soon as they were offered, and the race to get the biggest discounts created massive engagement. Groupon had harnessed psychology and unleashed one of the most powerful forces in the human mind: FOMO, fear of missing out. Groupon's business model was deceptively simple. The daily deal was the original product the company offered. Each one had a threshold that had to be met. This was a way to push engagement, but it also served as a failsafe to the merchants. They wouldn't be forced to give out the deal if there was no traffic increase to pay for it. And everyone benefited from it, especially Groupon. It was the perfect trap for highly engaged people. An enticing deal is posted, but a ticking clock is counting down. Not only do people snap it up, but then they have to find other people to take it in order to keep it. Suddenly, every Groupon member is a marketer for the company, telling their friends and begging them to sign up. The discounts were often as high as 50%, and the high of getting it wasn't just exciting, it was addictive. The secret of Groupon's success was that it kept people coming back every day to see what kind of discount they could grab. In 2011, Groupon went live on NASDAQ and they shot up the charts. It became the biggest IPO by an internet company since Google. It seemed unstoppable. The rise to the top seemed too good to be true. And it was. Groupon was all about the ride. The company gamified the process of coupon clipping and created one of the most loyal audiences in digital commerce history. But it wouldn't be long before the company's dirty little secrets started coming out, and people started asking if the whole thing was a scam. Because, as it turned out, Groupon might not be good for anyone. Not the users, and certainly not the vendors. Chapter 2: The Groupon Math. The dirty little secret of Groupon was that it needed to make its profits somehow. The site was free to use, although it did offer a paid subscriber model for $5 a month in order to get more and better deals. However, this was a drop in the bucket for the company's profit margin. Instead, the group paying for the deal was often the business, with Groupon arranging a profit split that always worked in its favor. Initially, it took around half the revenue from the deals, which not only made the day unprofitable, it sometimes threatened to put the partner company out of business. The only people benefiting was Groupon. One restaurant found this out the hard way. In 2012, a Washington, D.C. restaurant named Back Alley Waffles got the Groupon deal that was going to put it on the map. But what sounded like a dream quickly turned into a living nightmare for the now-defunct restaurant. The restaurant announced its closure with a social media diatribe that said Groupon was bad for their bottom line. They also accused the company of financial practices that deliberately screwed over their partners and bordered on fraud. It gained a nickname that says it all: Groupon Math. From the start, the math that powered Groupon rarely worked out for its partners. Say a bakery is the target of the daily deal. They typically sell high-end cakes for $50, but today that cake is only $25. For the first time, people who can't afford a high-end cake will flood into the store, buying them at a loss for the company, but that's just the start of the problem. Groupon is now taking 50% of their already meager profits for the day. That means that for a cake that normally sells for $50, the company is only making $12.50. That might be below the cost of materials and labor unless the company has an extremely high profit margin. They're going to lose money on the day, and the more successful Groupon is, the worse it is for the business. But at least there is an intangible benefit for the company, right? Well, Groupon's way of selling companies on the deal was by telling them that the end result would be new loyal customers. Buyers who normally wouldn't give them a chance get the opportunity to try them at an affordable price point and hopefully get hooked. But this rarely worked out for the company. The customers who loved Groupon weren't in their price range. When the price of the cake goes back up to $50 the next day, the people who can't afford it won't come back for a repeat purchase. The deals created loyalty, all right, but not to the business, to Groupon. According to Back Alley Waffles, Groupon's business model put them last from the start. The restaurant reported that all the profits initially went to Groupon. The orders processed through the daily deal were taken by the platform and immediately held onto. Meanwhile, Back Alley Waffles had to wait for its share. And it wasn't fast. The profits were distributed by Groupon in 3 checks over 60 days. So the small business was waiting 2 months for the meager money it had earned. And then Groupon fired back. The tech company pinned the blame directly on the owner, Craig Nelson, saying they were upfront with the terms of the deal and it was designed to help his business grow. They denied the claim that the deal had been oversold and they put the company in the hole. Instead, they implied that Back Alley Waffles had been in financial trouble before the deal. It was one of the ugliest chapters in Groupon's early PR history. And it wasn't just the payment process, it was the customers. The businesses who worked with Groupon reported that the customers the deal brought them were the worst of the worst. They were rude, entitled, rarely willing to tip, and highly unlikely to come back. Many companies signed up for Groupon, but few signed up for it twice. But that didn't stop the company from expanding aggressively with the confidence of a digital titan. However, behind the scenes, trouble was brewing and it would only be months before it all came out. Chapter 3. The Supply Chain Rebellion. Groupon's business model seemed ingenious. It relied on one of the most powerful forces in the world, a desire for a bargain. It had a deeply loyal customer base and an endless supply of first-time partners that were looking to raise their profile. The company was so confident as its IPO approached that it made one of the riskiest moves in the history of big tech. In 2010, they were approached by Google with an offer for a $5.3 billion buyout. This was reportedly on the heels of a $3 billion Yahoo buyout offer. Either one would have been a dream offer for most tech startups. Groupon turned them down flat. The Google rejection is one of the most infamous moments in tech history. It's seen as an act of arrogance by a hot new company with an unproven business model. But they thought that they had cracked the code of unlimited profits. After all, humans weren't going to tire of discounts anytime soon. So the company soon pivoted to making it faster and easier to grab deals. As the age of the smartphone began in earnest, they introduced an app, Groupon Now, that filtered deals by food and entertainment and let people grab them on the go by location. They added an insurance policy if the customers were unsatisfied, Groupon Promise, and they debuted their subscription service, Groupon VIP, in 2012. None of this would stop what was to come. Even before its IPO, Groupon was forced to amend its filing when its accountants noticed that its numbers didn't add up. The company admitted to using an unconventional accounting method titled Adjusted Consolidated Segment Operating Income. This completely excluded its massive online marketing and subscriber acquisition costs from the profit calculation entirely to manufacture false profitability. This allows the company to provide a more accurate long-term look at its profitability, but critics say it's cooking the books and deceiving investors. From the start, there were doubts about Groupon's long-term viability. The company also faced scrutiny for paying out too much of its venture capital funding to its founders and backers, rather than investing it long-term. This made the company cash poor as it launched. But the bad news and bad press started, and it never quite stopped. Within a year of its launch, Groupon had lost almost 80% of its peak value to close at only $83 a share in October 2012. The company's glory days already seemed to be behind it, as many investors doubted if it would be a good long-term investment. And they were right, because the company's biggest problem still awaited them. It was clear that the business model that relied on deal hunters worked, but it wasn't going to become the next Amazon or Google. Groupon had one critical flaw that was about to bite it where it hurts the most. It had become a brand in its own right. Everyone knew its name, but without something to offer, it was nothing. It needed vendors to partner with it on deals, and increasingly they had had enough. Over the first few years of Groupon, thousands of businesses had offered themselves up on the website for bargain hunters to discover. Restaurants, spas, bakeries, hotels, and bars were among the most popular choices, and invariably they all had the same experience. It was extremely hard to make a profit off of Groupon. So Groupon had to go hunting for the only asset that mattered. The increasingly cash-poor company was forced to hire expensive sales teams to market themselves to potential clients. They also stepped up their charm offensive to get new customers to sign up. This slowly turned the company into less of a discount service and more of a high-powered telemarketer company. Many of its new hires were cold-calling businesses to try to explain that actually this deal would be great for them. But Groupon kept seeing its stock price sink more and more because the company kept making unforced PR errors. The 2011 Super Bowl ad saw the company being accused of racism. It was hit by a lawsuit accusing them of violating federal law by giving gift certificates that expired earlier than allowed, with the company settling out of court. It even saw the deals blocked in Massachusetts, where regulators ruled its online vouchers violated the state's 1984 happy hour ban. Because the platform took a percentage of coupon sales, the state determined Groupon held an unlawful beneficial interest in local liquor licenses, forcing restaurants to pull their deals to protect their permits. It was one piece of bad news after another. Now the company was getting desperate. Groupon started with a huge cash flow and a business model that seemed unbeatable, but now it was spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a business model that no one seemed to buy into anymore. And the worst was yet to come. Chapter 4. The Golden Parachutes. To see how grim things have become for Groupon, you only have to look at their current stock price. The company is currently trading at just under $17 a share, having hit an all-time low of $9.17 during last year's trading. The company is a shadow of its former self. None of the people who initially built it are around to try to fix the damage. In fact, for anyone who was around during the glory days, it would be hard to believe what the company's become. But most analysts say that this isn't a case of mismanagement. The company was doomed from the start. After a year and a half of chaos since the IPO, the Groupon board decided it was time for a change and fired Andrew Mason, the controversial founder who set most of the company's policies. His resignation letter went viral as one of the most bizarre in corporate history, as he opened by saying, "I was fired today. If you're wondering why, you haven't been paying attention." He bluntly talked about the company's struggles and said that he still believed in the company while not addressing any of the critical issues that the company was having. It was up to the new guys to fix the mess. In terms of Groupon's history, this was still the first quarter. Its historic IPO to meteoric crash had only taken less than 2 years. The company had to figure out how to proceed with a business model that didn't seem to work anymore. It struggled to get new clients to keep their users excited, and nothing spells an end of a company faster than a lack of traffic. So they did the only thing they could. They pivoted. In 2011, Groupon launched Groupon Goods, a brand new branch of its company that was focused on offering physical goods. To keep with the brand, these would be clothing and accessories sold at a deep discount. Groupon wanted to take the experience of going to your local flea market and finding that one special deal to the online sector. But there was one big problem. It had the Groupon discount market nearly to itself, but getting into the physical goods sector, it was going up against some of the most powerful sites on the internet, like Amazon and eBay. That didn't stop the company from trying to buy its way out of trouble. The company continued to make aggressive acquisitions, hoping to pick up the networks and customers of those similar companies around the world. This included an Indian deal-of-the-day company named Sosasta. It also snapped up the restaurant apps Breadcrumb and Savor, both of which offered them access to more high-end restaurants. They acquired gift card sharing app Boomerang, geo-tracking app GlassMap, and fashion company Ideally. It was all a part of the idea to turn Groupon from a site for discounts into a site for everything. Today, it's hard to recognize the company at all. It went from being the hottest company in the world to collapsing under the weight of a business model that screwed over the very people it was supposed to help. So what is Groupon's future, or does it even have one? Groupon's original business model eventually crashed as people realized what it was built on, and what remains is a zombie company of sorts. It uses the iconic brand name while mostly hawking a small number of deals alongside a raft of cheap, no-name goods from abroad. Today's Groupon is a digital dollar store. It's relying on companies buying into the business model again. If it doesn't work, the company's slow bleed out is likely to turn fatal sooner rather than later. When tech companies crash, they often crash hard. Check out the Amazon deal that just killed Microsoft's future to see if Bill Gates' brainchild is next on the chopping block. Or watch this.